everyone, my name is Mads, and today we're going to go down the rabbit hole and talk about Heartless by Marissa Meyer. Heartless is the new book by Marissa Meyer about the origin story of the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland, and don't worry if you haven't read it yet, I'm not going to spoil you on anything that happened. Okay, so I'm just going to jump on into it. Heartless is about Kath, the daughter of a Marquess of Turtle Rock Cove in the Kingdom of Hearts in Wonderland, and Kath is a noblewoman, and she's expected to marry well and to be very fancy and proper, but what Kath loves to do more than anything is bake, and her life goal is to open up a bakery in Hearts with her best friend and maid, Marianne. Unfortunately for Kath, the king is in love with her and wants to marry her, and her mother wants that arrangement more than anything, and so Kath's dream has to be put on the back burner because she's too afraid to ask her parents for the money to start a bakery and to not marry the king. At the ball where the king is supposed to propose to her, Kath meets Jess, the brand new court joker, and slowly begins to fall in love with him. Throughout all of this, a new danger has come to Hearts. The Jabberwock, which everyone thought was extinct, has returned and is preying on the people of Hearts, and no one knows why. Kath is determined to make a life that she will enjoy, but the world has other plans. And that is all I can tell you without spoiling you. So overall, I really loved this book. I had no idea what I was going to think about it. I can be kind of picky with Alice in Wonderland retellings. It's a favorite story of mine. And I also have never read a Marissa Meyer book, so I didn't know anything about her or her writing style, but I really loved this book. This was fantastic. Now, the entire story is not an action story. It does kind of snowball. It starts off small and just goes down a hill. But I did think that the parts that were slower, that were building the story, were every bit as entertaining as the big action scenes at the end, and I like that about this book. It was really fun to read. First thing I want to talk about is the characters. I thought they were all really well done and all very well rounded and very in-depth. Our main character, Kath, is very lighthearted and sweet and fun. She's not a pushover by any means. She does have a spine and an attitude, but she also is very willing to do things to make other people happy, and she just wants to bake and have a happy life, and she's very kind and fun, and I like that about her. That lightheartedness was very interesting because as the story progresses and life and just the events of the story just consistently stack against her and wear on her, she develops this hardness in her, and I found that really interesting because I picked up on it, but I didn't really notice it or acknowledge it until she snaps at the end of the book, and that was terrifying because all of these things that have been building up in her that have been kind of nullified by her personality are just let loose, and is just really phenomenal to see how dark she can truly get. Another character that I really loved was the love interest, Jess. Jess is your kind of fun, charming, sassy Joker character. He reminded me a lot of Nikolai from the Grisha trilogy, if you've read that. Just that kind of like lovable rogue. I really loved him. I actually found the love triangle to be really well-rounded between them. I thought they suited each other really well, and it didn't feel like insta-love to me. I just thought that they complemented each other. He was also lighthearted and fun, but a little bit more grounded, whereas Kath was very idealistic and hoped for a fate that was different than what was likely to happen to her, and I thought that that balance worked really well between them, and I loved the way they interacted. The last character that I want to specifically talk about is the king, because I have never been so intentionally irritated with a character in my life, and you're supposed to be. You're supposed to find him ridiculous and obnoxious and just completely unbearable to read. He's just so ridiculous. He is very childlike in his interactions, and I think he's supposed to be like 15 years older than Kath. He's just got this very weak, spineless personality while also being kind of brainless. He's easily amused by like everything. He just wants to eat and have a bunch of parties, and Kath is very concerned with the stuff surrounding the Jabberwock and the other things facing their kingdom, and he just wants to pretend that it's all not happening and sweep it under the rug. He's also there's just something about him. She wrote him so well because there's just every time he shows up, I just want to gag. There's one point where Kath like imagines having to like marry him and actually have children with him, and I physically cringed while I was reading it. She specifically says that he is a kind person, he is a good person, but he is just very unappealing regardless. So the next thing I want to talk about is the plot. The plot had a sort of snowball effect like I mentioned before, and it did start out with a very, not super slow burn, but not a lot of action. And I liked that about it. At one point I was about 50 or so pages in, and I just thought that it felt a lot like historical fiction, and the only reason that I really knew that I was in Wonderland was because of the just casual mentions of the Wonderland elements that were around us, and I thought that was really interesting because somehow being in Wonderland made that seem so much more whimsical and fun. However, I don't really think that was a problem. I thought that that worked really well for this storyline, and I just loved watching Kath and Jest kind of interact at the beginning, and then once the story progressed a little bit further and she and Jess started to talk a little bit more and hang out a little bit more, then you start seeing more of Wonderland and the world began to expand and unfold, and it wasn't just casual mentions of these whimsical things that you find in Wonderland, it was the world itself, and the world was excellently done. As the plot progressed, however, the world began to feel a lot less like reality, and as Wonderland kind of began to unfold, the plot started to pick up. It really does feel like a stone rolling down a hill. It just gathers and gathers and gathers, and you don't really realize the enormity of everything that's happening or that has built up to certain moments until those moments come to pass, and you're just like, what I really liked about this was that regardless of whether it was the exposition or the action, I was equally as intrigued at both parts. I really thought that this was both a successful kind of love story and also an action story. I never felt like one side of that story was stronger than the other. And I thought that both the exposition, where the romance was unfolding and things were a little slower, and the action itself worked really well together in this story. Another thing that I would like to mention is that I was also really invested in the love story because of the way that they worked in the world, and the way that they drove the plot together was not just because of their romance, but because of other things, and I thought that was really incredible and really well done, and I just really enjoyed the plot of this. The last thing I want to mention is the writing. Well, the writing itself didn't stand out to me as being particularly unique. I did think that it was very well written as a story. The way it was written was certainly entertaining. Something that I loved that Marissa Meyer did was she had this very casual way of throwing in all of these background details from the original Alice in Wonderland story, and it made the world feel so much more realistic to me. They were just casual things that made the world feel a lot more tangible. She would just kind of casually mention that there's a flamingo sipping wine, or just something like little things that just made the world feel so much more fleshed out, and it was just these tiny details that made me feel like I was really in Wonderland, and I really liked the way that that worked together. I really feel like the writing complemented the story that she was telling. All in all, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I thought that it was fantastic. I thought that the action at the end just drove everything home. When I finished, I just had to put the book down and sit for a minute, and that's a feeling that I love to have. I did really enjoy Heartless, and I would definitely recommend it to you. So that's all for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked me, hit like or subscribe. If not, that's okay. Thank you guys for watching anyway, and I'll see you next time. Bye!